Bonjour, bonjour. Good morning. I'm Miss Cherie. We have learned so much this year in our study of God's plan of redemption. We've gone from God's creation to Israel's exodus from Egypt, their wandering in the wilderness, and entering the promised land. We've covered the judges, kings of Israel, and even books of the Bible that teach us about wisdom. Isn't the Bible such an amazing book? Well, last week, we talked about how Elijah went up to heaven and in a whirlwind, and then how God was using Elisha as the next prophet of Israel. Now, the nearby country of Aram was an enemy of Israel. Each time the king of Aram made plans to attack Israel, God would tell Elisha their plans. And then Elisha would let Israel's king know, so the enemy would not be able to hurt them. So the king of Aram set up a camp for his army at a certain place, and Elisha sent messages to the king of Israel warning him about the enemy's camp. Well, when the king of Aram found out that his plans had been discovered, he thought one of his own soldiers had told the king of Israel where they were staying. But the soldiers said, "We didn't tell. It was Elisha, the prophet in Israel." Somehow he knows what you say, even when you say it in secret. Well, the king of Aram heard that Elisha was in the city of Dothan. So that night he sent horses, chariots, and a large army to surround the entire city. And Elisha's servant got up early the next morning and saw that the army had surrounded them. "What are we going to do?" he asked Elisha. And Elisha said, "Don't be afraid. Our army is bigger than their army." Well, the servant was confused because he could only see the army of Aram. So Elisha prayed, "Lord, open my servant's eyes." And he saw the horses and the chariots of fire. It was the army of the Lord covering the entire mountain. And so then Elisha prayed for God to close the eyes of the army of Aram. And God answered his prayer, and they were blinded. "You're in the wrong city," Elisha told the army, and he led them away to Samaria. And when they arrived, he prayed, "God, open their eyes." And God did. And Elisha told the king of Israel to give them food and water, and then the king sent them home. Well, this story reminds us that there is more to the world than what we can see with our eyes. God opened the eyes of Elisha's servant, and he opens our eyes by using scripture to remind us of his promises. One of those promises is that God is always with us, even though we can't see him. The Bible also teaches us in Colossians that Jesus came to earth as the visible image of our invisible God, and he promised to never, ever leave us. So remember, even though you can't see God around you right now, he is right there with us. Thanks for listening to our story today. Let's worship our God together, the God who is with us. I love you and I'm praying for you. Toodaloo!